Hello everyone and welcome to the first virtual Stonehaven Folk Festival. My name is Usmani and I play with the band Tsunami. Today I'm going to do a trad workshop on how to play the piano when you're accompanying a tune. Now the piano can play a lot of different styles really well, including boogie woogie blues, Latin and jazz, and I like to use all of these different ideas when I'm putting my own spin on accompanying a tune. I'm going to show you some of the ideas. I know it's really hard to see on the piano, so I'm going to switch and use some technology to enable me to show you effectively what I'm actually doing. Let's give it a go. Okay, so the first idea that I would usually do in a song or a tune is sort of shadow the melody a little bit. Now the violin or whatever other instrument is playing the tune usually fulfills the function of making sure the melody is taken care of. But what you can do is sort of shadow the melody so that people get an idea that you're not just kind of making it up as you go, that you've kind of learned a bit of the tune. Obviously, if you learnt the whole tune, well, that's good for you, really. But I think your job accompanying or playing behind the other person, sometimes the first thing you can do is sort of play the tune a wee bit and then branch out. So you could go dun, 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 dun. Now I'm using kind of thirds, ascending thirds in a tenth structure here. Dun, 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 dun. Almost like what a classical pianist would do. Dun, 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 dun. And again I'll use it here. Da, 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 da. Yeah, so da 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 dun dee dun dee dun da 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 dun dun da 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 dun dee dun da dee dee da dee da. Alright, that's sort of the first thing I would probably look at when I'm coming up with a part. And the next thing I would do is then draw on different styles. Now I see a lot of kind of pianists kind of do this, you know, that kind of thing. That's effective, it does work because you're still kind of fulfilling the function of what's needed, which is the sort of driving rhythm, if you will, you know, that kind of. But I think what can also work really well, which is maybe a slightly lighter touch, is you can do almost like a stride thing. So in jazz piano, they use a lot of stride, which is using the left hand like that. Dum jum dum jum dum dee 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 dee. Where's it? Dee 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 da da. Yeah. So that's just what I would probably do as another idea. Now you can do all sorts of tricky things. You could do it in tenths, you can do it in octaves, you could do it in fifths with the stride thing, but you're always kind of playing a chord above it. So jump ba jingy junga jing junga jing donga do donga digi dongi do da ba da dee ba da ba da ba da ba da ba da dee 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 dee. And then above that, on the right hand, I mean, if you were amazing, you could play the whole tune with the right hand and do stride. But what I would probably do is use some chords and just use them almost like a sustain. And I would probably use things like ninths or sixths to colour the chord a wee bit. So if you go jung, ba jung, jung, you can on the G you can go jung, jing, jung, jung. Again, you can go there if you want, da 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 da, yeah. And then you could go there back to there, da 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 da. So you can kind of colour it however you want. Dun, dun, da, 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 da. Dun. You could just play a G. Da, 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 da. So that was the sort of the second idea that I would really look at, which is quite an effective way to back someone. Of course you could, there's lots of different ways that you could do stuff on the piano, but that's one way of getting that really nice kind of chugging boom chuck rhythm. On the guitar, boom chuck, boom chuck, boom chuck, boom chuck, yeah? Rightio. So that brings me to the next kind of point, which is kind of throwing a little bit more of a jazz influence in there. Now, for me, it's sort of like different kind of foods. Some people like spicy food and some people don't like spicy food, and music isn't that dissimilar from that. Some people like blue vein cheese. I like blue vein cheese and I quite like spicy food. And I think when you're looking at sort of chord choices or colours, it's a little bit like that. Some colours are a bright purple, where others are a bit more of a, you know, dull orange, if you will. So it depends if you want a kind of yellow or if you want a green. Ultimately, they're the choices that you make. Now, one way of explaining that is if you had this, jun, 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 this is for the next section, jun, 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 right? Now if you just switch that to a seventh there, like instead of a major seventh, flat seventh, like a blue seventh, it will sound more gospel-y straight away. Jun, jun, jun. Yeah? So it depends if you want that kind of gospel church sound. If you want the church sound, that's kind of what you would do. You'd give it that kind of buzz. But if you want the kind of more of a jazzy, openish sound, you give it that kind of squashed major seventh sound. So I've gone to the major kind of seventh. Jun, 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 now I did throw a little passing chord in as well here. When on the way down, dun, dun, da, ba, da, ba, dum, ba, da, ba, da. There's an interesting chord. So it's like a minor. It's like an E flat minor with a major seventh and a flat nine. It's kind of a weird chord there, you know, to throw in there. You only can hear it for a very short amount of time, but if you listen to it in context, dun, ba-da-ba-dum, ba-da-ba-dum, ba-da-ba-da-boom, you know, and then back down. Whoops. Ba-da-ba-da, dum-dum-boom, boom, ba-da-ba-dum, ba-da-ba-dum, ba-da-ba-da-boom, boom, boom. Again, you wouldn't have to throw it in. Now also I think rhythmically it's really important to look at what I'm kind of doing there. So we've had the boom chuck kind of rhythm going, you know, the boom chukka, boom chukka, boom chukka. Once you've established that, really the violin's doing so much semi-quavers and dividing of the beat, it'd be very hard for you to lose the pulse at that stage, you know, so one thing you can kind of do at that stage is make a kind of cross rhythm happen. And one of the cross rhythms that I generally go to by default is a Latin, almost salsa-ish rhythm. I would say it's more of a reggaeton rhythm really, which is just jun, 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 jun. I think that actually it's 1 2 3 1 2 1 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. So I kind of like that because everything else is on the beat all the time. You know, it's kind of semi-quavers the whole time, and then you can come in with something that's a little bit more off that beat. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3, and it's always going to cut. That rhythm's always going to be a cross polyrhythm really, in a sense, and it's a nice way to use that sort of Latin piano ideas a little bit. So you can kind of do, you know, jun 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 jun. So I've lost my own chord. Dun 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 bum 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 bum. I don't know if you like that chord or not. I've got some more crazier chords coming, so. So that brings me almost to the final section. We've gone through quite a few ideas, and I think it's worth noting all of those ideas for the sort of colours and the sort of arrangements that you want to put in to your pieces. But this is where it kind of gets a little bit more into the spicy realm. choices that you could make, because ultimately you can play things however you want, and you might not like that. You might think that that's pushing the harmonic structure just a wee bit too far. I'm going to kind of go there just so you sort of see how I would think about it, how I would look at it, and try and infuse some sort of differentness into that music, or some sort of edginess. And obviously I think there's so many different ways you can do them, and they're all valid. There's no wrong choices really, unless it sounds terrible, I suppose. But let's just have a quick look then at what I'm talking about. We've got this. So the right hand I'm sort of doing a B minor chord, but in the left hand, sorry, I'm doing a B minor chord, right? In the right hand, I've got the minor third, I've got the fifth, I've got the seventh, and then I've got the ninth at the top. So that gives me a nice full chord. So I'd go like jung, 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 and then I'd swap here and I'd just play like a G major seventh. So we've got G, B, and a tenth again. You could put, if you really wanted to, you could put the fifth in there, right there. It kind of makes it interesting. So you go jung, jung, jung. So where was I? Sorry. So we've got that chord, which is quite interesting. Then we go to this chord, yeah? Now this is where it kind of gets pretty interesting, and it's whether or not you sort of like this, but you've got that chord. And the reason this chord can kind of work, which is an F sharp 9. F sharp 9. And an F sharp 9 means that you've got your F sharp, obviously, your A sharp, your E, which acts as the seventh, just another F sharp, just because it's there, your minor third, and then your fifth. So it's everything you kind of need there. If you really wanted to be tricky as well, you could put this D on the top if you wanted some sort of, make it even more different. The reason that can kind of work, because that's not too far away from what it generally is, which is a D chord. It's back to a D chord. And they are related to each other in the sense that really it's only that one note different. It's actually not much different. You wouldn't have to do the C sharp. The C sharp makes it a little bit further away again, but again the C sharp is because a lot of the time you've got a D major seventh. So the C sharp's within the D anyway. Does that make sense? So that all of these notes, that's a sharp 5 of the D, and that's a major 7th of the D. And they all do live within the D world, but they're slightly further away. They live slightly further away than some of the happier, really close neighborhood people. That's another way I like to think of it in chords and shapes, is you've got D, he's really, really good friends with G. You know, they live really next to each other, they've had lots of parties, you know, they like to talk to each other and have a good time. He's still friends with F sharp 9. He's still friends with him. However, he's not as good of friends. They're a little bit further away. It takes him a little bit further time to see him. He doesn't see him quite so often. So he lives in there, but it's, you know, but as opposed to just like an E flat, or, you know, minor, which is, or, you know, what's it called that's miles away, I don't know, you know, say, they're all kind of related, aren't they, I suppose, but you know, you could say A flat, say for instance, it's quite far, they're really far, he's out on the sticks compared to the friendships that D usually has. It's not to say they're not friends, because used in the right context, he's still a good friend in a way, kind of. I mean, if you go like that, they're not really the best of friends. Then, you know, some sort of really mad dissonance. So where were we? So we've got the, let's just get back to where we were. We've got the B with a ninth in it, B minor 9, B minor 9, there, okay? And then that just goes to a G major 7. You can put G major 7th, you can put the A in there as well, which gives it the ninth or the second, however you want to call it. And then you go back to our mate here. He's in there somewhere. You're going, hey, F sharp. Oh yeah, I like that one. And this is where we get a little bit kind of crazy as well, because generally speaking, most people would play an A here. They go back to that. It's nice and resolved. We're all happy. And if you didn't want to resolve it quite so much, you do a major. You do a F4, like an F sustained chord. Quite often it is an F sustained because he still lives within the D actually. Because you've always got a D drone kind of in trad music. There's always a drone note. The drone note tends to be the home note, just like a D. So you could play that. So you could go But I think what you want to do is get a little bit more spicy with it, get a little bit more out there and a little bit more outrageous. So if we go like this, he's still loving it, and then we go so what am I doing there? Well, it's a B flat. B flat. And it's a B flat sharp 5. There's the sharp 5. With a flat 5. And another sharp 5. Another B flat. And a C sharp. So if you're going to look at it from what it really is a B flat diminished, okay? B flat diminished. That's kind of what it is. However, what you're throwing in there is the F sharp again, because really it's kind of just gone from a minor F sharp to a major F sharp properly. That's really all functionally it's doing. And the reason that works is because B minor, well, one of his real good friends is F sharp major, F sharp. So they're good mates. So he can actually go to that and he'd be quite happy, really. So it depends again how far you want to push those relationships, because the B minor, he's quite good friends with the D, which is the home key. They're real good friends, they live just 2 doors down. Dun, 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 here we are. And then because I'm kind of spinning it into the B minor at that point, dun, 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 and then F sharp minor to F sharp major. That's always going to lead back to the B minor. The second time I don't really lead it that way. I go like this, and then I go to E. You don't really even need to change the right hand because that's still quite a nice chord in E. And then even for the D you wouldn't need to change it. You could even just do that if you wanted, because that's still all the notes in D. So all those notes are within the D chord. Dun, dun, dun. And again, I'm using big temps in my left hand to give it a nice fat sound. Anyway, there's a lot of ideas there, a lot of different ways you could look at it, but I tend to think of it like shadowing. Yeah? Yeah, which is almost more like a kind of classical idea. And then a kind of stride idea. And then a kind of jazzy idea. Quite like that one. And then the way I like to look at this next one is just sort of, I don't know, just pushing it outside of the boundary of sort of normality into some sort of musical sphere, where you just go, I don't know why I like that. And I think one of the reasons why I like it is it doesn't go D to A to D, which is kind of all music really is a lot of the time. It's like resolved, unresolved, resolved, unresolved, resolved. And a lot of the dance around it is more just how you explain it in a different way, like how you're going to kind of keep it unresolved or how you're going to keep resolving it. And so this is just really unresolved for a long time. You know, chung, 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 chung. Where was I? Chung, 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 chung. There. And then it goes back to the resolved. That's where you're kind of like, oh, that's right, it was in D. That's the key we were in, it was D. Because for a while there, you kind of, who knows where we are. We're just lost, you know, in this world of music. It's beautiful. Lucky. Dun, dun, dun. Rightio. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I've taken a little bit of time just to try and get some of the ideas clear so that you understand what I'm doing and how I look at it. And hopefully we see you at a real gig soon and I can play for you in person. Thank you very much. Usmani here from Madam Tsunami. You have a good day. Alright, well that concludes today's workshop on the tune The High Drive by the composer, the late great Gordon Duncan. Gordon Duncan was a very famous piper from the Aberdeenshire area, and this is a notable tune that a lot of people have covered and played. Now, with some of these piano ideas, some of them are quite advanced and some of them may be a little bit easier to start with, and I would just recommend that you just look at what suits your own personal style of playing and what you might be interested in developing. You could just take one of those ideas or one of those harmonic structures, have a little bit of a play around with it and just see if you like it. It is a little bit like cooking. I mean, you can introduce a whole lot of different spices and flavors. They might not always be what suits your palate, so you might want to tone it down a little bit, or maybe just take the second idea, for instance, the stride idea, and just develop that a wee bit, because technically you could just play that for the whole tune and it would still be fantastic. For me, the main thing is I find the trad scene interesting and exciting because there's a wealth of history and knowledge and compositions in the works, and we can add our own personal spin on them and put like a more modern edge and develop them in new ways now. And with a world that's ever closer with the internet and virtual things going on, I think this is only going to lead to the betterment of music and also how we interact with each other and talk to each other and deal with each other, and hopefully it all leads to a place where we can all smile and just enjoy the music and enjoy our time being here. So I'd like to thank you very much. Before I go, I thought I'd just pop up this sheet music in case you want to learn the whole tune. Thank you very much to the Stonehaven Folk Festival team for having me on board and letting me show you some of my ideas.